Hello and welcome to the Social Party of Canada's daily release on policies and information pertaining to the party. Today's topic we'll be talking about is universal basic income and our commitment to creating a universal basic income. We did share a video on Twitter made by Kutzkazar, which shows a lot of the benefits and real-world applications and possibilities for UBI. We find that this video is educational for the general public to give them a basic understanding of what UBI could mean for this country. Universal basic income will grant every Canadian an equal standard of living, meaning no matter what, you will have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. We have an obligation as a society to see this through. Now, UBI, while the word universal would imply the applications to everybody, the universal basic income we are proposing does not apply to every Canadian citizen. Some Canadian citizens are well enough off that they do not require the extra financial help that UBI would provide. And as such, we have set guidelines for when UBI will be taken away and or lowered, depending on your level of income. It's important to note that all levels of income noted are net income and not gross income. We must take into account the actual amount of disposable money a Canadian citizen has, not the amount of money totally earned, because a lot of that money is lost to taxation. So when we use the numbers to talk about UBI, be aware these are net income numbers. UBI will be available to all Canadians if you are on base UBI, which means you do not work, or if you are on base UBI and earn under $15,000 a year net, you will receive tax-exempt status. What I mean by this is general sales tax or GST exempt status. We will set this up as a system of a card that can be provided at time of purchase that can allow Canadians to waive the general sales tax. Also, once you earn over $15,000 a year plus UBI, the sales tax forgiveness will go away and you will once again be required to pay for general sales tax. UBI is then based to have a cut in the payable amount once a person earns over $50,000 a year. At this point, we're using a payable amount of $2,000 to $2,500 a month for universal basic income, and this number would be cut once someone earns over $50,000 a year net income to an amount roughly $1,500 to $2,000 a month. This is a small cut, but it will allow for the funds to be more evenly distributed and available. Likewise, once a person makes more than $85,000 a year as an individual, UBI will be cut and you will no longer receive basic income. At this point, you are well enough off to support yourself financially. Likewise, amounts will be differing for couples and couples with children or individuals with children. For couples, UBI will be cut off once a couple makes over $120,000 a year combined. As for couples with children, UBI will be terminated once you make over $135,000 a year combined. For individuals with children, this number is $95,000 a year. UBI's funding and payments. To pay for UBI, we would seek to end all current social assistance programs, including but not limited to the Canadian Pension Plan, employment insurance, as well as several provincial programs such as welfare programs, AISH in Alberta, and other social assistance programs, including programs designed to help the homeless, including funding for homeless shelters and food kitchens. Universal basic income will grant the homeless a standard of living, and these services will no longer be required in society. Cutting these many different services will also clear up bureaucracy, which will decrease the amount of funding needed to run the program. This is to be looked at as a reallocation of funds rather than the creation of new ones. It is very important that we reallocate all funds necessary to pay for UBI from other sources in order to not cause inflation. While ending all current social programs may not be significant enough to cover UBI, we would seek to supplement UBI's funding through the creation of new taxation laws regarding to the wealthier Canadians. This proposal is right now being called a greed tax, which will see all high-income Canadians and Canadians with vast fortunes as well as corporate entities pay significantly increasing tax amounts to allow for social programs like UBI to continue. Funds from this greed tax can also be used to fund some of our other social programs we'll be proposing, including universal basic health care and universal education, which will cover the cost of post-secondary education for all Canadians. The creation of new taxes that target the wealthy are necessary. It is time that the wealthiest of Canadians and the wealthiest of corporations pay back to society to help society. Society and individuals have made these corporations and people rich and powerful. And as such, they have a social obligation to help the society that gave them their wealth. This would be the purpose of the greed tax, and it will supplement universal basic income so as that the program can be fully funded and covered. Now, it is important to remember that this is a basic income to ensure an equal standard of living for all Canadians. While a UBI won't necessarily assure access to housing for all Canadians, we would seek to implement other rules and regulations to ensure that all Canadians have equal access to housing. By this, we would seek to remove access to housing restrictions, such as the requirement for a credit check before moving into a new residence, the requirement of employment before moving into a residence, and the requirement of a past history of rentals. Removing these requirements from the rental industry will allow all Canadians access to fair housing. As well, universal basic income will help to support all Canadians moving forward, allowing them to possibly seek out new means of employment, jobs better suited to them, return to school to further their education, and move up to a job that better suits them. As well, this will allow Canadians to lower their working hours. We seek to create a 4-day work week. This will be talked about later in one of our further uploads. But UBI will allow for shortened work weeks and for employees to demand better working conditions from corporations. Handing this power to Canadians gives everyone an equal standing and the ability to demand fair and equal treatment in the workplace, as well as allowing Canadians to pursue more of their own interests in the hopes to help society move forward. Changes to UBI may be proposed based on public opinion and support. We are committed to the public's opinion on this program and seek to make changes to make it work for all Canadians.